Go. Hi folks, Johnny Matthew here. Welcome back to the blog. It's great to have you here, particularly welcome if this is your first time listening. If you'd like to become a paid subscriber, you can do that for as little as $5 a month. Just click through to one of the subscribe buttons and there are various choices there, but you're welcome to this free of charge as always. So this post today is why kids blame themselves, number 3. And it's the second of 2 posts about how we can help. Introduction. In the last post, and the one before that, we looked at the common phenomenon of self-blame when children take on responsibility for the way that others treat them. In the first post, we examined the issue itself, asking why kids blame themselves when, to us, it's obvious that what happened wasn't their fault. And in the last post, we began looking at what we can do to begin supporting kids to work through this and get things in a better perspective. Today, I want to change the focus of how we can help from the kids themselves to us as individuals, and looking at some of the things that we can do to make ourselves better helpers. So there are 4 different sections here. They are foster resilience and self-compassion, develop your own knowledge, reading and review, develop your own knowledge, training, and look after yourself. So there'll be a couple of different points to make under each of those 4 larger categories. Okay, here we go. Practical strategies for professionals. Now, as always, this is nowhere near an exhaustive list by any means. Just some thoughts that might help us think about how to adapt practice and our own approach to practice to these kinds of children where self-blame is an issue. So number 1, foster resilience and self-compassion. Now, unlike the other 3 points in this post, this is about the children, but it's very much at the interface between who we are and how we practice and the kids themselves. So a couple of points to make here: strengths identification and self-compassion exercises. Strengths identification. Help children recognize their strengths and highlight past instances of overcoming challenges. Often we are so rightly focused on the problems and associated safeguarding tasks that we miss the strengths in the child and their network. Now, helping kids to gain insight into how they've coped well and what this says about their ability to adapt and what it's taught them is a great way to rebalance the equation in their favor. So any time spent looking at, highlighting, emphasizing, just putting the spotlight on what kids do well, how far they've come, and what's worked for them in the past can really help to bolster resilience and some self-compassion. Self-compassion exercises. Teach kids practices that promote kindness towards themselves. Countering feelings of blame and guilt in this way can really help. For example, reframing those negative verbal narratives that the child may have absorbed is a good place to start. So, for example, you could think through how the child speaks about themselves, notice the words they use, and then reframe those gently to draw out and emphasize the good stuff. Do exercises that explore what the child can do and what they're good at generally, and take opportunities to offer gentle praise whenever you can. Just a word to the wise here, a note that be sure to offer praise and encouragement in small doses and without language that's too exuberant. Remember, this is a kid who blames themselves for the awful stuff others have done. Their negative internal working model and critical self-narrative will all overpower our efforts if we're too lavish and over the top. Gentle, subtle, consistent positivity will eventually win out. But the winner is the one who plays the long game. So stay tentative and gentle and keep going. So that's foster resilience and self-compassion, identifying strengths and teaching self-compassion exercises. Number 2, develop your own knowledge, reading and review. Read. Stay in touch with the latest research and practice thinking on child trauma is important if we're to stay current and offer kids the best chance of recovery. When training professionals, I often ask them, when did you last read a book or a research paper that relates directly to the work you do with kids? The averted eyes and sideways downward glances give people away. For most of us, it's far too long. Why not resolve to read a bit more? Set yourself an achievable goal and give it a shot. If my experience is anything to go by, you'll find it stimulating and thought-provoking, not to mention the evident improvement in knowledge and practice confidence. So go for it. If you wanted, by some quirk of nature, to follow my reading, you can do that. Just look me up, Johnny Matthew, on Instagram, and I post all the books that I read in the order that I read them when I finished them, with a quick comment about them, and I give them a star rating as well. And at the end of the year, I'll do a review of all of those. But reading is good, not only for the soul, but it's good for our professional practice and knowledge. Review practice. This is something that most of us have never really formed a habit around. Certainly once I finished my social work training, I practically ceased to review practice, certainly in any formal way. But after a tricky session or one that's gone well, it's really good if we can take time to review what happened, why it did or didn't work, and what we can learn from it or improve next. Dan Hughes's PACE idea, that playfulness, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy, is a great structure for this, I find. You can take each of those 4 headings, think back on a piece of work with a child, and ask yourself, not about the child, but how did I do around those? How well did I attune to this child based on those 4 ideas? Or you can use the trauma recovery model. There's a link to a free download of that diagram in the text post if you want. But you can use the TRM to check the alignment of the child's needs as you know them to be with your current practice focus, because it's often a misalignment of what we're doing versus what the child needs that can really halt progress. So bringing those 2 things back into alignment can be massively helpful. Quick slurp of my coffee. All right, number 3, develop your own knowledge training. So we've looked at develop your own knowledge, reading and review. So read a lot and review your practice. And then this is number 3, develop your own knowledge training. Now, courses. There are loads of good training and learning opportunities available these days, particularly since things have moved online. And even if your employer has a limited budget, many online courses are now half a day or a couple of hours long, and therefore more affordable. If you're really committed, you can consider paying for them yourself. More on that in a minute. But places like SlideShare for PowerPoint slides shared by others for free, or Eventbrite and other training platforms where professionals and agencies give access to training and learning opportunities are well worth a go. So let's drill down into that paying for it yourself thing just for a second. The investment mindset. Now, training is pricey sometimes, isn't it? And while agencies should be picking up the tab for the essential stuff, of course, the stuff we need to do our jobs, they rarely go beyond that. I mean, constrained budgets these days just don't allow for that. So, a long time ago now, I took it on myself to pay for training that I felt would help me do a better job. Paying for a course yourself is one thing, though. But using your annual leave, your time off work to attend is another thing altogether. So I took to asking my employer to allow me the time off. In other words, give me the time to attend so that basically I pay for the training and they let me have the time. And that way there's no impact on my annual leave. So yes, it costs in the end, but in the long run, it means I've had some fantastic training that I never would have had if I'd waited for someone else to pay. Give it some thought. A couple of quickies really on that more specifically. I've found attending conferences that are specialised around an area of interest in the work is a fantastic way to meet other people, build friendships, but also to network and get connections. My postgraduate study, the MSc study that I did some years ago, happened as a direct result of contacting probably the senior mind on the planet on the subject I was interested in, just at a conference, very informally. He gave me his email. I emailed him a couple of weeks later. He sent me a shed load of his research and PDF documents, and I went on from there to conduct my master's research around that subject. And that was because I was at a conference that I might not have been at had I insisted that my employer pay, but they did give me the time. So find ways around it and be prepared to invest, and you'll do fine. So that's develop your own knowledge, training, courses, and the investment mindset. And then number 4, look after yourself. I know this is a regular drum that I can be guiltily accused of beating, probably a bit too often. But anyway, there's 3 quick things here. Recognize the potential toll. Try my little self-care course. It's online. And also get your head around this idea that you matter. So recognize the potential toll. Help children to come to terms with and start processing their traumatic memories can have a real impact on us. You know, I think of it as we get splashed by their stuff. So those trying to help, that's us, get affected by the stuff we're trying to help with. And recognizing this is a valuable safeguard. It's the essential first step against secondary trauma and the deleterious effects that can have. So recognize the potential toll. Try my little online self-care course. I mean, it's as cheap as chips. In fact, off the top of my head, I can't even remember. It might be 59 quid or something. But anyway, I wrote a little book on self-care after a serious brush with burnout. And then at the outset of lockdown in kind of around Easter 2020, Dusty Kennedy and I turned that into an online course. And it was in very high demand then. And actually, we've just had a whole flurry now of people buying it again. It's a very straightforward, simple, stripped back. Why do we need to look after ourselves? What are the pitfalls that we get into? What are the barriers that stop us looking after ourselves? And then offering some solutions that can help avert that. So please check that out. You can probably see that, I believe, at trmacademy.com/self-care, all one word, I believe. But anyway, if you look up the text blog on here, I'll put the embedded links in the show notes there. So try out the little self-care course, recognize the potential toll, and then lastly, you matter. We can't be optimally effective in helping others if we neglect ourselves. And especially if we start taking that stuff home with us. So all that stress and the trauma of the kids at work needs as much as possible to stay at work. If we take it home, that's not going to play well. Most of the progress that these kids make will happen in the context of positive relationships, though, and that's you and me. So we need to stay strong, avoid burnout, and be on our best possible game. That's imperative. So please be sure to look after yourself too. Instilling hope, the pathway to recovery. It's imperative to convey to both children and their caregivers that recovery from trauma is not only possible but probable with appropriate support and interventions. Children possess remarkable resilience and, with the right guidance, they can navigate through the pain, shed the toxic self-blame, and emerge stronger. As professionals, our role is to encourage this process, offering tools, empathy, and unwavering support along the way to facilitate their healing in whatever way that we can. By implementing some of these that I've mentioned and other strategies, and in fostering an environment of understanding and compassion, we can make a profound difference in the lives of children burdened by self-blame, guiding them toward a future that's more hopeful and offers possibilities that wouldn't otherwise be available to them. Being a bringer of hope is a fantastic privilege, isn't it? Final thoughts. Now, I've always struggled with seeing kids blaming themselves for the toxic horribleness that others have inflicted on them. It both maddens me and saddens me. It's an incredibly liberating realization, though, that most kids will find their best chance of recovery in the context of safe, consistent, and caring relationships. The solutions lie less in clever techniques and fancy newfangled approaches, but more in the reliability and skill of someone who really cares. Now, I can do that, and so can you. So maybe the best way to really help troubled kids, whether it's self-blame or some kind of other problem, is to get better at what we do and release more of our raw human kindness into the mix. I hope that's helpful. I'll see you in the next one.